I'm a master sommelier. 15 years training my palate to detect every note in a wine. That expertise should have been used to recommend a Burgundy or debate terroir with wealthy clients. Instead, I used it to mix restaurant cleaning chemicals into a glass of Barolo. I've been searching for my sister for 5 years. Emma, taken by a man the police said didn't exist. Daniel Morrison sat at table 7, drinking from a bottle I'd opened, laughing like he'd never destroyed anyone's life. One chance. One improvised poison. 30 seconds. Then the wrong man picked up that glass. A businessman I'd never seen. 3 seconds to decide. Let an innocent man die, or lose my only shot at justice. I saved him, grabbed the glass, ruined his suit. Then I learned his name. Lorenzo Vittori, Mafia boss. The most dangerous man in the city. He knew what I'd done, and now I belonged to him. Let me back up. 20 minutes earlier, I stood in the restaurant's wine cellar staring at the reservation book for table 7. Private dining room. Party of 8. Sommelier. Requested. Isabel Moreau. That's me. I flipped through the guest list like I did every night. Names. Dietary preferences. Wine allergies. The small details that separate adequate service from exceptional. Then I saw a name that stopped my heart. Daniel Morrison. Guest of Lorenzo Vittori. My hands started shaking so badly I had to set the book down. Daniel Morrison. 5 years. 5 years. I'd been searching for that name. The man from the police sketch Emma's roommate had described. Gold ring on his right hand. Expensive watch. Smile that looked charming, but felt cold. The man who'd approached my 22-year-old sister outside her favorite coffee shop on a Tuesday morning. Who'd complimented her. Called her beautiful. Talked about modeling opportunities and acting auditions. About how she had the perfect look agencies were desperate to find. Just one meeting, he'd said. Just come talk to my colleague. 20 minutes of your time. She texted me from the car. Meeting with a talent scout. Wish me luck. That was 5 years ago. I never heard from her again. I stood in that wine cellar, listening to my heart hammer against my ribs, trying to think clearly. Call the police? I'd spent 2 years calling them. They'd investigated for 6 months before closing the case. Emma was an adult. She'd gone willingly. No signs of struggle. No evidence of foul play. Probably just wanted a fresh start. These things happen. Time to move on. Confront him directly. March into a private dining room full of wealthy men and accuse their guest of kidnapping? I'd be escorted out by security before I finished the sentence. Fired. Blacklisted from every restaurant in the city. Possibly arrested for harassment. Or, I looked around the cellar. Hundreds of bottles, tens of thousands of dollars of wine aging in perfect temperature-controlled conditions. And in the corner, on the shelf marked cleaning supplies, authorized personnel only, the industrial chemicals we used for sterilizing barrels and equipment. Metabisulfite, concentrate. Usually diluted to 1 part per million for wine preservation. Undiluted, it could cause severe chemical burns. Ingested in concentration, extremely toxic. I'd spent 5 years catastrophizing every scenario, planning for moments that never came, preparing for opportunities I never thought I'd get, always ready for the worst. I just never thought I'd actually act on any of it. My hands moved before I could second-guess myself. 1 wine glass from the rack. Crystal. Perfectly clean. I poured a measure of Barolo Reserva 2015, beautiful deep ruby color, complex nose of cherry, tobacco, leather. Then I added exactly 3 drops of undiluted metabisulfite concentrate from the bottle labeled danger, chemical buns, and must dilute before use. Not enough to kill him. I wasn't trying to kill him, just enough to make him violently ill. Severe enough for emergency hospitalization, serious enough that doctors would run tests, find the chemical, call the police, start asking questions. Questions that would lead to investigations that would finally uncover what happened to Emma. I marked the poisoned glass with a tiny smudge of my fingerprint on the base where the stem met the bowl. Invisible, unless you knew exactly where to look. Then I arranged 7 perfectly clean glasses beside it, on the silver serving tray. My 15 years of training took over. Professional presentation. Each glass positioned with mathematical precision. The poisoned 1/3 from the left, where Morrison's place setting would be based on the seating chart. My hands were completely steady as I lifted the heavy tray. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it. 5 years of searching. 5 years of dead ends and false leads. 5 years of police officers who eventually stopped returning my calls. 5 years of everyone telling me to move on, to accept that Emma was gone. 5 years of lying awake at night, wondering if my sister was still alive somewhere, if she was trapped, if she was suffering, if she was waiting for someone to save her, if I was her only hope. I walked up the stone stairs from the cellar, each step feeling like walking toward a cliff edge. I reached the main floor, crossed the restaurant. The evening service was in full swing. Around me, waiters gliding between tables, guests laughing over appetizers, the beautiful chaos of a successful night. No one looked at me twice, just the sommelier, carrying wine to a private dining room. I reached the heavy wooden door marked private, took one breath, pushed it open, and everything went catastrophically wrong. The private dining room was exactly as I'd imagined it. Mahogany paneling, crystal chandelier casting warm light over white linens, a table set for 8, with china that probably cost more than my monthly rent. 8 men in expensive suits turned to look as I entered. My professional smile locked into place. Buonasera, signori. I'm Isabel, your sommelier this evening. I kept my voice steady, pleasant. I have the Barolo Reserva 2015, as requested. The man at the head of the table nodded. He was younger than I'd expected. Late 30s, maybe. Dark hair, perfectly styled. Suit that fit like it had been made specifically for his body. Everything about him was precise. Controlled. Excellent. Please proceed. I moved to the table, setting the tray on the service cart. My eyes scanned the place settings, matching them to the seating chart I'd memorized. And there he was, 3 seats from the head of the table. Right side, Daniel Morrison, older than in the sketch. 5 years of good living had added weight to his face. But the ring was the same. The watch was the same. That smile was the same. He was laughing at something the man next to him had said. Completely at ease, like he'd never destroyed anyone's life. I wanted to scream, to grab him, to demand answers about Emma. Instead, I picked up the first wine glass. The 2015 Mascarello is exceptional, I said, my voice not wavering even slightly. Notes of cherry and rose, with beautiful structure. It should pair wonderfully with your Promi. I poured for the man at the head of the table first. Proper protocol. A small taste for the host. He lifted the glass, examined the color, inhaled deeply, tasted. A moment of consideration, then a nod. Perfect. Continue. I poured for the rest of the table, working clockwise from the host. Professional. Precise. Each glass filled to exactly the right level. The 7th glass went to the man sitting 2 seats from the host. The 8th glass, the one with my fingerprint on the base, went to Daniel Morrison. I set it in front of him carefully. Watched the poisoned wine settle in the crystal. Enjoy, gentlemen. If you need anything else, please don't hesitate. I stepped back to my position against the wall. Hands folded. Invisible but attentive. Exactly as a sommelier should be. My heart was trying to break through my ribs. Morrison lifted his glass. Brought it to his nose. Ah, Bartolo Mascarello. Excellent choice, Don Lorenzo. Don Lorenzo. So the rumors about the man at the head of the table were true. Morrison swirled the wine. Admired the color in the chandelier light. This was it. This was actually happening. 5 years of searching, and in 30 seconds, it would all be over. He'd drink, he'd get sick, they'd call an ambulance, run tests, find the poison, start investigating, and I'd finally get answers about Emma. Morrison raised the glass toward his lips. Then Lorenzo Vittori spoke. Un momento, Daniel. Everything inside me went cold. Lorenzo gestured to Morrison's glass with one elegant hand. Your position at the table catches the light beautifully. The wine's color will show much better from that angle. No, no, no. Morrison smiled. Of course, Don Lorenzo. Please, take it. No, I insist you keep. Don Lorenzo. It would be my honor. Morrison stood slightly, reaching across to place his glass in front of Lorenzo. Then he took Lorenzo's clean glass for himself. They switched. The poisoned glass now sat directly in front of Lorenzo Vittori. Time seemed to slow down. Lorenzo lifted the glass, studied the deep ruby color with the appreciation of someone who understood wine, who valued perfection. He brought it to his nose, inhaled. In 10 seconds, he'd taste it. In 5 minutes, he'd be violently ill. In 10 minutes, he'd be in an ambulance. And I would have poisoned the wrong man. Not the man who took my sister, just some wealthy businessman who liked wine. My body moved before my brain finished processing. Stop. I was across the room in 3 steps. My hand shot out and grabbed the glass from Lorenzo's hand just as it touched his lips. Wine sloshed over the rim, splashed across his pristine white shirt, his silk tie, his perfectly tailored suit jacket. The glass slipped from my fingers. It fell, shattered on the marble floor. Dark red wine spread across pale stone, like blood. The room went absolutely silent. 8 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. I saw 2 men in dark suits materialize from corners. I hadn't even noticed. Security. Their hands moved toward their jackets, where their weapons would be. Lorenzo Vittori stood slowly. Wine dripped from his shirt, from his jacket, from his hair. He looked at me with eyes like winter, cold, controlled, absolutely furious. Signorina Moreau. His voice was quiet. That somehow made it worse. You have 10 seconds to explain why you just assaulted me in front of my guests. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mind was spinning. What could I say? What explanation could possibly... 9. The security guards moved closer. Professional. Efficient. Men who'd done this before. Gate. I couldn't tell the truth. Couldn't say I'd poisoned the wine. Meant for someone else. 7. But I had to say something. Anything. 6. The wine, I blurted out. Something's wrong with the wine. Lorenzo tilted his head slightly. Wrong with the wine. Yes. When I poured, I noticed the smell was off. Chemical. Wrong. You noticed a chemical smell from 6 feet away while serving 8 glasses. I have a trained nose. 15 years. 5. I stopped talking. He looked down at the wine spreading across the marble floor. At the shattered crystal. At his completely ruined suit. Then he looked at Daniel Morrison. Daniel, come here. Morrison stood, walked over. His face carefully neutral. Don Lorenzo? Lorenzo gestured to the spilled wine. Smell this. Tell me what you detect. Morrison hesitated, then crouched down, leaned toward the puddle of wine on the floor. He inhaled. His face went pale. He stood up quickly, stepping back. There's Don Lorenzo. She's right. There's something chemical in it. Sharp. Wrong. The room erupted. Voices in Italian, in English. Overlapping. Who had access to the wine? The cellar supposed to be secure? Check the bottles. Could be the barrel. Lorenzo raised one hand. Instant silence. He never took his eyes off me. Everyone out. The 7 men stood immediately, filed toward the door. Morrison cast one last look at the spilled wine, then left with the others. The security guards remained. Lorenzo looked at them. You as well. One guard frowned. Don Lorenzo, we should. Now. They exchanged glances. Then left. The door closed with a soft click. We were alone. Lorenzo Vittori walked to the bar cart built into the mahogany paneling, poured himself a glass of water from a sealed bottle, drank it slowly, deliberately. Then he turned to face me. That wasn't contamination, he said, his voice perfectly level. That was poison, deliberately added. And you knew exactly which glass it was in. I felt the blood drain from my face. Don't lie to me. He set the water glass down with precision. I've been in this business long enough to recognize when someone is hiding something. You didn't smell anything wrong from across the room. You knew that specific glass was poisoned because you're the one who poisoned it. My throat closed. So let's try this again. He took a step toward me. And this time, Signorina Moreau, I strongly suggest you tell me the truth. He pulled out his phone, set it on the table between us. One call. That's all it takes. One call, and you disappear, just like your sister did. Everything stopped. You know about Emma. I make it my business to know everything about everyone who works in establishments I frequent. His eyes never left mine, including the sommelier who's been working her way through every high-end restaurant in this city for the past 5 years. Always watching, always searching, always asking questions about certain guests. Then you know why. I know you just tried to murder one of my business associates in my presence. He took my sister. Did he? The question hung in the air. Lorenzo walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. Daniel Morrison is a recruiter, he said. That much is true. He finds young women attractive, ambitious, desperate for opportunities. He promises them modeling contracts, acting auditions, a better life. My hands clenched into fists, and then he sells them. I whispered. Usually, he turned back to face me, but not always. What does that mean? It means Morrison is a middleman. He moves girls through a network, but he doesn't control where they go. He doesn't make decisions. He's a recruiter, nothing more. So someone else took Emma. Someone else bought her. Yes. Morrison likely has no idea where she ended up. My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the back of a chair for support. Then she could be anywhere. She could be alive. I looked up sharply. Lorenzo's expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes had shifted. Morrison keeps records, he said. Names, dates, photos, transactions, insurance in case his employers ever decide he's become a liability. You're saying he knows where Emma is? I'm saying he might have information about where she was sent. Hope flared in my chest. Painful and bright. Then let me question him. Let me. You just tried to poison him at my dinner table. Lorenzo's voice hardened. Do you have any idea what you've done? I saved your life. You created a catastrophe. For the first time, his perfect control cracked. Just slightly. 7 witnesses just saw you assault me. 7 men who will now question whether my security can be trusted, whether I can be trusted. He gestured to his ruined suit. I was supposed to close a €50 million deal tonight. Instead, I'm standing here covered in wine, my evening destroyed, my reputation questioned, all because you decided to take justice into your own hands. I didn't mean for you. What you meant is irrelevant. He cut me off. What matters is what happened. You compromised my security. You humiliated me publicly. And you potentially cost me a business arrangement that took 6 months to establish. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. He walked closer, stopped 3 feet from me. Do you know who I am, Signorina Moreau? My throat was dry. A businessman. Real estate development. I've seen your photo in the society pages. Anything else? You're wealthy, powerful. You dine here frequently. And the men call you Don Lorenzo. Yes, they do. He held my gaze. Do you know what that means? I swallowed hard. I've heard rumors. Then let me confirm them for you. His voice remained perfectly calm. Perfectly controlled. My name is Lorenzo Vittori. My family has controlled organized crime in this region for 3 generations. Import, export, protection, gambling, construction. Every major business in this city either works for me or pays me for the privilege of existing. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. You're Mafia. I prefer the term organization. But yes, I'm what the newspapers would call a crime lord. I couldn't breathe. Which means Daniel Morrison works in my territory. Whether he knows it or not. Whether he reports directly to me or through intermediaries. Any criminal enterprise in this city operates under my oversight. So you're part of this. My voice cracked. You're part of what happened to Emma. No. The word was absolute. Final. He stepped even closer. Close enough that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. Let me be extremely clear, Signorina Moreau. I have many business interests. Some legal, many not. But I have rules. Lines I do not cross. And the most important rule, the one I enforce, without exception, is this. Women are never to be harmed. But Emma, if Daniel Morrison took your sister, he did it without my knowledge or permission. Because any man in my organization who traffics women, who harms them, who treats them as merchandise, answers to me personally. And the punishment is not lenient. Something in his voice made me believe him. Then help me find her. That's not how this works. You said you respect women. You said. I said I don't harm them. I didn't say I operate a missing persons bureau. His expression hardened again. You tried to commit murder at my dinner table. You created a spectacle that 7 powerful men witnessed. You've put me in an impossible position. I saved your life! And now you owe me for the chaos you've caused. We stood there, facing each other, both breathing hard. The silence stretched. Finally, Lorenzo spoke, quieter now. Here's what's going to happen. You will work for me. You will move into my estate. You will do exactly what I tell you when I tell you without question. I'm not your property. No, you're my employee, under contract, for as long as I determine is necessary to repair the damage you've caused. And Emma? And if you prove trustworthy, if you follow my rules precisely, if you demonstrate that I can rely on your discretion and obedience, he paused, then I will consider using my resources to help you find your sister. Consider, that's all you're getting. I wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but there was something I had to know first. Did you have anything to do with Emma's disappearance? The question hung in the air between us. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but he held my gaze steadily. No, I give you my word. The word of a criminal. The word of a man who has never broken a promise to a woman. Not once. Not ever. That is the one, absolute in my life. Signorina Moro. Women are sacred. They are protected. They are respected. Any man who violates that principle in my organization dies. Slowly. The intensity in his voice, the absolute conviction, made something in my chest loosen slightly. I took a shaking breath. If I agree to work for you, you'll help me find Emma? If you prove worthy of my trust, I will investigate. I will use my resources. I will apply pressure where pressure needs to be applied. I make no promises about what we'll find, but I promise I will try. And if I refuse, he picked up his phone, showed me the screen. A photo. My apartment building. My car in the parking lot. 3 black sedans parked nearby. Men in dark suits standing by them. This was taken 5 minutes ago. Those are Volkov family soldiers. They're Morrison's employers. They handle the trafficking network in this region. My blood went cold. Morrison will have told them by now that someone tried to poison him. They'll be looking for who had access to the wine. Your name is on the staff list for tonight. They're already watching your apartment. He pocketed the phone. So you have 2 choices. You can walk out of this restaurant and try to go home. See how long you last. Or you can accept my offer. Come under my protection, and we both get what we need. This isn't a choice. No, he agreed. It isn't. I looked at his ruined suit. At the wine still staining the marble. At this man who'd just told me he was a crime lord, who'd threatened me and offered me help in the same breath. Do we have an agreement? Lorenzo asked. My voice came out as a whisper. Yes. We have an agreement. But hey, he straightened his tie as if the wine stains didn't exist. My driver will take you to the estate immediately. Your belongings will be collected from your apartment tonight. You'll find appropriate clothing in your room. We'll discuss your duties tomorrow morning at 6. That's less than 8 hours from now. Yes. I suggest you use them to sleep. You'll need it. He walked to the door, opened it. 2 security guards waited outside. Escort Signorina Moreau to the car. Make absolutely certain she arrives at the estate safely. Then he looked back at me one last time. And Signorina Moreau? If you ever attempt something this reckless again without my explicit permission, I won't save you from the consequences. Are we perfectly clear? Crystal clear. Excellent. Welcome to the Vittori family. He walked away, leaving me standing in a puddle of spilled wine and shattered glass, wondering what I'd just agreed to. One of the guards cleared his throat. Signorina, this way, please. I followed them out through the restaurant. Past the other diners who had no idea what had just happened in that private room. Past the kitchen where I'd mixed poison into wine. Less than an hour ago, past my coworkers who waved goodbye, thinking I'd finished my shift normally. Outside, a black Mercedes waited. Engine running. Windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. The guard opened the rear door. I hesitated. This was it. The moment where I either trusted a mafia boss to help me find my sister, or ran and took my chances with the men watching my apartment. Not really a choice at all. I got in the car. The door closed behind me with a heavy final sound. We pulled away from the restaurant, away from my normal life, away from everything I'd known, toward whatever came next. The Vittoria estate was 20 minutes outside the city. We drove through increasingly rural areas until we reached a gated entrance, with guards who checked the car thoroughly before waving us through. The house. No. Mansion. Sat on what had to be 50 acres of manicured grounds. Classical Italian architecture. Lights blazing from dozens of windows. Fountains. Gardens. It looked like something from a movie. The car stopped at the front entrance. A woman in her 50s dressed impeccably waited on the steps. Signorina Moreau. Welcome. I'm Maria, the head of household staff. Don Lorenzo called ahead. Your room is prepared. She spoke with the brisk efficiency of someone who'd worked for the Vittori family long enough that nothing surprised her anymore. Not even a sommelier arriving at 11 at night with no luggage. I followed her inside. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Art that looked like it belonged in museums. Everything was perfect. Pristine. Organized. Just like Lorenzo Vittori himself. We climbed a grand staircase to the second floor, walked down a hallway, lined with what I suspected were priceless paintings, and stopped at a door near the end. The East Wing, Maria said. Don Lorenzo thought you'd appreciate the morning light. The bathroom is through there. Your closet has been stocked with appropriate clothing. Breakfast is served at 7, but Don Lorenzo requested you meet him in his study at 6. Someone will come to collect you. Collect me. Like a package. Like an employee. Maria's expression didn't change. Don Lorenzo expects punctuality. I suggest you don't keep him waiting. She left. I opened the door. The room was larger than my entire apartment. King-size bed with posts that nearly reached the ceiling. Sitting area. With a fireplace. Desk. Bookshelves. Windows overlooking the gardens. And through an open door, a bathroom. With marble counters. And a bathtub that could fit 3 people. I walked to the closet. It was full of clothes. All in my size. Business attire, casual wear, even sleepwear. How long had he been planning this? Or did he just have resources that could make anything happen in minutes? I sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. 12 hours ago, I'd been a sommelier working at a high-end restaurant. Now I was living in a mafia boss's mansion, bound by some agreement I didn't fully understand, with only a vague promise that he might help me find Emma. I'd saved his life, and somehow ended up even more trapped than before. I lay back on the bed, still fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in this city, or in another city, or another country, Emma might still be alive. And Lorenzo Vittori was my only chance of finding her. Even if it meant working for a criminal. Even if it meant becoming part of his world. Even if it meant losing myself completely. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow would come, whether I was ready or not. Someone knocked on my door at 5:45. I'd barely slept. Every time I'd started to drift off, I'd jolt awake, remembering where I was, what I'd done, what I'd agreed to. Signorina, Don Lorenzo is ready for you. I got up, washed my face, changed into one of the outfits from the closet, black pants, white blouse. Professional, appropriate for meeting a man who could make me disappear with one phone call. The guard who'd knocked waited outside my door. He led me back downstairs, through hallways I hadn't seen last night, to a heavy wooden door. He knocked twice. Avanti. The guard opened the door, gestured me inside, then closed it behind me. Lorenzo Vittori sat behind a massive desk in a study lined with books. He changed into a fresh suit. No evidence remained of the wine I'd spilled on him. Everything about him was once again perfect. He looked up from the document he'd been reading. Signorina Moreau. Sit. I sat in one of the leather chairs across from his desk. He studied me for a long moment. You look terrible. I didn't sleep much. Understandable. You tried to commit murder yesterday. That tends to affect one's rest. He set aside his papers. Let's discuss your new position. I thought I was your sommelier. You are, among other things. He opened a drawer, pulled out a file, set it in front of me. This is Daniel Morrison's complete background. Associates. Business dealings. Known addresses. Travel patterns. Everything my people could compile in 12 hours. I stared at the file. You investigated him. Already? I told you. I keep my promises to women. He leaned back in his chair. Morrison works for the Volkov organization. They run trafficking operations through 6 countries. Very sophisticated. Very careful. Very difficult to penetrate. But you can do it. Perhaps. It will take time, resources, careful planning. His eyes met mine. And your help. What can I possibly do? I'm a sommelier. Exactly. You have access to places my men don't. You can observe without suspicion. You understand luxury establishments, high-end clientele, the world where these transactions happen. You want me to spa? I want you to work as my sommelier, managing my wine cellar, attending events where wine service is required. And while you do that, you watch, you listen, you report anything relevant about Morrison or the Volkov organization. And if they realize what I'm doing, then you'll be very glad you're under my protection. He stood, walked to the window. Make no mistake, Signorina Moreau. This arrangement benefits both of us. I need information about the Volkov operation. You need information about your sister. We use each other, carefully, professionally, until we both get what we want. And then? And then you're free to leave. He turned back to face me. But until that day comes, you belong to me. You live here. You work here. You follow my rules without exception. Is that understood? Yes. Good. Your first task is to familiarize yourself with my wine collection. The cellar is extensive. Some bottles are worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. You will catalog everything, update the inventory system, recommend additions or sales as appropriate. That sounds like normal sommelier work. It is. I told you, you're here to work. He picked up a phone, pressed a button. Marco will show you to the cellar. You'll begin immediately. It's not even 6 in the morning. I'm aware of the time. I expect excellence from my employees. Signorina Moreau. Excellence requires dedication. Dedication requires sacrifice. A knock at the door. A man in his 30s entered. Dark suit. Professional demeanor. Marco, this is Isabelle Moreau, my new head sommelier. Show her the wine cellar. Ensure she has everything she needs. Yes, Don Lorenzo. I stood, started to follow Marco out. One more thing. I turned back. Lorenzo was watching me with those cold, controlled eyes. The file on Morrison. Read it carefully. Memorize every detail. But understand something. Until I tell you otherwise, you do nothing. You approach no one. You investigate nothing on your own. If you act independently again like you did last night, our agreement ends, and I won't be able to protect you from the consequences. I understand. I hope so. Because the Volkovs don't make mistakes twice, and neither do I. I left his study with my heart pounding. This was my life. Now, working for a mafia boss. Living in his mansion. Following his rules. All for a chance. Just a chance. Of finding Emma. I followed Marco through the mansion, down a stone staircase, into a cellar that took my breath away. The wine collection was extraordinary. Thousands of bottles. Climate-controlled rooms. Organization that rivaled professional auction houses. This is incredible, I whispered. Marco nodded. Don Lorenzo is very particular about his wine. The previous sommelier. He trailed off. What happened to them? They made a mistake. A costly one. Don Lorenzo doesn't tolerate mistakes. He handed me a tablet. Inventory system. Everything's documented. Don Lorenzo expects your full assessment by end of week. Then he left. I stood alone in that beautiful cellar, surrounded by bottles worth millions, working for a man who made people disappear when they disappointed him. I opened the file on Daniel Morrison and started reading about the man who'd taken my sister. 3 weeks passed. I worked in Lorenzo's wine cellar every day, cataloging, organizing, updating his inventory system, making recommendations about purchases and sales. It was methodical work, precise, exactly what Lorenzo demanded. At night, I read everything his organization compiled about Morrison, about the Volkov family, about trafficking networks and money laundering and criminal enterprises I'd never imagined existed. I attended 2 dinner parties where I served wine to men who smiled while discussing business deals I suspected were covers for something darker. Lorenzo was always there, always watching, always in complete control. We barely spoke outside of professional interactions, but I felt his presence constantly. In every room, every decision, every moment. I was a bird in a gilded cage, and I had no idea how to escape, or if I even wanted to. On the 23rd day, everything changed. I was in the cellar, examining a case of Burgundy that had just arrived. When Marco appeared, Don Lorenzo wants to see you. His study. Now, my heart jumped. In 3 weeks, I'd only been summoned to his study once, for a progress review that had been brief and professional. This felt different. I followed Marco upstairs. Lorenzo stood by the window when I entered. He didn't turn around. Close the door. I did. He was silent for a long moment. Then, I have information about your sister. Everything stopped. What? What information? He turned to face me. His expression was unreadable. Morrison kept records, as I suspected. My people accessed them. Your sister's name is in his files. Where is she? Is she alive? I don't know yet, but I know where she was sent 5 years ago. He walked to his desk, pulled out a photograph, set it face down. Before I show you this, you need to understand something. The organization that bought her, they're dangerous. More dangerous than the Volkovs. More dangerous than anyone you've ever encountered. I don't care. Tell me where she is. They operate in Eastern Europe. They move girls through a network of... He paused. It doesn't matter what they do. What matters is that approaching them requires extreme caution. Then we'll be cautious. We? He raised an eyebrow. This isn't a partnership, Signorina Moreau. You said you'd help me find her. I said I'd investigate. I have. Now you need to decide how far you're willing to go. He turned the photograph over. Emma, but not the Emma I remembered. Older, thinner. Her eyes looked empty. The photo was dated 6 months ago. She's alive. I whispered. She was 6 months ago. Whether she still is. Lorenzo didn't finish the sentence. I stared at the photograph. My baby sister, looking like a ghost. What do I have to do? You have to trust me completely. You have to follow my orders exactly. And you have to be willing to do things that will frighten you. I already tried to poison someone. I think I've crossed that line. That was amateur hour. What I'm proposing is much more dangerous. I looked up at him. This man who'd become my entire world in 3 weeks, who I still didn't trust, who I had no choice but to rely on. Tell me what you need me to do. Lorenzo studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out a chair. Sit down, Signorina Morel. We have a lot to discuss. I sat and listened as he explained exactly how dangerous saving my sister was going to be. The plan Lorenzo laid out was insane. Emma was being held in a compound outside Bucharest. The organization that owned her, Lorenzo refused to call it anything else, ran their operation like a business. Girls were assets, merchandise. They were kept, used, and eventually discarded when they were no longer profitable. How long do they usually keep them? I asked. Lorenzo's expression darkened. 5 years is approaching the limit. After that, they're considered damaged goods. They either disappear completely or end up somewhere worse. Worse than being trafficked? You don't want to know. He pulled up a map on his computer. Showed me the compound. Security footage. Guard rotations. We can't just raid it. The organization has connections to government officials, police, military. A direct assault would be suicide and would alert them to move the girls before we could extract Emma. Then how? We infiltrate. Slowly, carefully. We establish a business relationship, make ourselves valuable to them, and when the moment is right, we take what we came for. That could take months. It will take months. Possibly a year. Emma might not have a year. Then we do this my way. Properly. Or we don't do it at all. His voice was steel. I'm offering you the only realistic chance of getting your sister back alive, but it requires patience, discipline, and absolute obedience to my instructions. I wanted to argue, to demand we move faster, to do something, anything, immediately. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had spent 5 years planning for worst-case scenarios, knew he was right. What do you need me to do? The organization deals in luxury goods as a front. Wine, art, antiquities. They host exclusive auctions for their clients. Very private, very expensive, very illegal. You want to get invited to one of their auctions. I want us to become one of their preferred vendors. Which means I need a sommelier who can authenticate and value their wine collection. Someone with impeccable credentials. Someone they'll trust. Me. You. He pulled up another file. In 2 months, they're hosting an auction in Vienna. By invitation only. If we can secure an invitation, you'll accompany me as my wine consultant. We assess their collection. We make ourselves indispensable. We build trust. And then, we figure out how to get into that compound in Bucharest. It sounded impossible. It was also the only plan we had. I'm in. I know you are. You don't have a choice. He closed his laptop, which brings me to the next problem. The Volkov family. My stomach dropped. What about them? They're still looking for whoever poisoned Morrison. My sources tell me they've narrowed it down to restaurant staff. They're investigating everyone who worked that night. But you said I was safe here. You are, as long as you stay here. But eventually, you'll need to appear in public with me. At restaurants, auctions, social events. And when you do, there's a risk someone will recognize you. So what do? We change your appearance. Significantly. Hair, makeup, clothing style. Everything. You want me to become someone else. I want you to become the kind of woman who works for Lorenzo Vittori. Sophisticated, elegant, untouchable. He studied me critically. You have potential, but you dress like a sommelier who takes the bus to work. That needs to change. It should have felt insulting. Instead, it felt like transformation. Becoming someone new, someone who could move in Lorenzo's world without fear, someone who could save her sister. When do we start? Tomorrow. Maria will take you to the appropriate establishments. Hair, wardrobe, everything. You'll also begin etiquette training. Etiquette training? You'll be attending events with billionaires and criminals. You need to know how to navigate both worlds seamlessly, how to read a room, how to extract information without seeming to ask questions, how to be charming and forgettable at the same time. That sounds like spy training. It is spy training, which is exactly what you'll be doing. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. One more thing. Starting tonight, you'll join me for dinner. Why? Because you need to practice. Conversation, table manners, how to eat properly while watching everyone around you, how to drink wine, socially while staying completely sober and alert. These skills aren't optional. They could save your life. That evening, I dressed in one of the more formal outfits from my closet and made my way to the dining room. The table was set for two. Crystal, china, silver. Lorenzo was already there, reading something on his phone. He looked up when I entered, assessed me with one sweep of his eyes. Better. But Maria will fix your hair tomorrow. I sat down. A staff member I hadn't met before served the first course. Some kind of seafood preparation that looked like art. Lorenzo set his phone aside. Tell me about the wine you selected for tonight. I blinked. I didn't select anything. Exactly. That's your first test. We're having seafood, then lamb, then dessert. You should have prepared appropriate pairings and presented them to me before dinner began. Tomorrow, you will. I didn't know I was supposed to. In my world, you're always supposed to think 3 steps ahead. Anticipate, prepare, never be caught off guard. He took a sip of water. This dinner is a test. Everything I do for the next several weeks is a test. Pass them, and I'll trust you enough to take you to Vienna. Fail them, and you stay here where you're safe, but useless. The pressure settled onto my shoulders like a weight. For the next hour, he critiqued everything. How I held my fork, how I cut my food, how I sat, how I made conversation. You talk too much when you're nervous. Learn to be comfortable with silence. You ask direct questions. That makes people defensive. Learn to extract information through observation and indirect inquiry. You telegraph your emotions. Your face shows everything you're thinking. Master that, or you'll get us killed. By the end of dinner, I was exhausted and angry. Is there anything I did correctly? I asked, as dessert was cleared. You listened. That's more than most people do. He stood. Same time tomorrow. Be prepared. He left me sitting there, fuming. This was my life now. Constant evaluation, constant criticism, constant pressure to become someone I'd never been. But if it meant finding Emma, I'd endure it. I'd endure anything. The next 3 months were brutal. Maria took me to exclusive salons, where they transformed my appearance. My hair went from ordinary brown to rich auburn, with subtle highlights. They taught me makeup techniques that made me look elegant instead of trying hard. They completely rebuilt my wardrobe with pieces that cost more than I used to make in a month. Lorenzo hired a former intelligence officer to train me in observation and information gathering, how to read body language, how to spot lies, how to remember conversations perfectly, how to notice details others missed. Every evening, I dined with Lorenzo. He'd present scenarios, quiz me, test my reactions. You're at a party, a man asks where you're from. What do you say? That depends on who he is. He's a potential business associate, wealthy, connected. I'd deflect. Ask about him instead. People love talking about themselves. They won't notice I never answered. Better. Again. You notice someone watching you too closely. What do you do? Find an excuse to move to a different area. Stay in crowded spaces. Never isolate myself. Good. Now, you overhear something sensitive, something dangerous. What's your immediate action? Memorize it. Act like I heard nothing. Report to you later in private. Excellent. He was a demanding teacher. Ruthless. Unforgiving of mistakes. But I learned. God, I learned. I also spent hours every day in his wine cellar. Not just cataloging anymore, studying. Lorenzo would quiz me on vintages, regions, techniques. He'd bring down bottles and demand I identify them blind. Describe their characteristics. Estimate their value. Why does this matter? I asked one day after failing to identify a Brunello. Because when we're in Vienna, you'll be authenticating wines, worth hundreds of thousands of euros. If you make a mistake, if you show any uncertainty, they'll know you're not what you claim to be. And then we're both dead. The stakes made every lesson feel like life or death. Because they were. On rare occasions, Lorenzo would soften slightly, usually late at night, after particularly difficult training sessions. You're improving, he said one evening, as we reviewed my progress. High praise from you. I don't believe in false encouragement. You're doing well. Better than I expected, honestly. Why did you expect less? Because most people break under this kind of pressure. They give up, run away, convince themselves it's not worth it. He looked at me directly. You haven't. That tells me something about your character. It tells you I'm desperate. Desperation fades. Determination doesn't. You have determination. That's rare. It was the closest thing to a compliment he'd ever given me. I held on to it like a lifeline. The dinner routine continued. But slowly, it changed. We stopped focusing solely on my training. We started having actual conversations. Tell me about Emma, he said one night. Before she disappeared. What was she like? I hadn't talked about her in years. Not really. The police hadn't wanted to hear. My friends had grown tired of the topic. Everyone had wanted me to move on. But Lorenzo listened. She was brilliant. Studying art history. She could look at a painting and tell you everything about it. The period. The influences. The emotional state of the artist when they created it. I smiled at the memory. She was going to work in a museum. That was her dream. Surround herself with beautiful things and help other people appreciate them. She sounds extraordinary. She is. She is extraordinary. Tell me more. So I did. I told him about how Emma would drag me to galleries on weekends. How she'd make me look at sculptures for hours while she explained why they mattered. How she'd laugh at my complete inability to understand modern art. She sounds like she made you see the world differently. She did. She made everything more interesting, more beautiful, more worth paying attention to. My voice cracked, and then she was just gone. And the world's been gray ever since. Lorenzo was quiet for a moment. Then, we'll find her. I promise you that. You said you don't make promises you can't keep. I don't. Which is why I'm making this one. Something in his voice made me look up. His expression was still controlled, still carefully neutral. But his eyes held something I hadn't seen before. Determination that matched my own. 4 months after that night in the restaurant, Lorenzo called me to his study. We have an invitation. My heart jumped. Vienna? Vienna. The auction is in 2 weeks. We leave in 10 days to prepare. He handed me a folder. Your identity. Isabel Moreau, wine consultant and authenticator. Educated at the Wine and Spirit Education Trust in London. 15 years experience. Consultant to several major auction houses. Impeccable credentials. These are fake. These are real. I had them created by people who don't make mistakes. If anyone investigates, they'll find exactly what they expect to find. Publications. references, transaction histories, everything. You've thought of everything. That's what keeps me alive. He pulled out another document. This is the profile of the man we're meeting, Dmitry Volkov. I froze. Volkov? As in the Volkov family? Dmitry is the younger brother. He runs their legitimate business operations, including the auction house. He's dangerous, intelligent, and completely ruthless. You cannot make a single mistake around him. Why would he invite you? Don't they suspect you in Morrison's poisoning? They suspect someone in my organization. Not me personally. And I've been careful to express outrage about the incident, demanded my own investigation, positioned myself as a victim, not a perpetrator. You're good at this. I've been doing it my entire life. He closed the folder. You need to understand something. Once we're in Vienna, we're in enemy territory. The Volkovs control everything there. We'll be watched constantly. Every word, every gesture, every interaction will be analyzed. I understand. I hope so. Because if they realize who you are, if they connect you to Morrison's poisoning, they won't hesitate. They'll kill you, and they'll make sure I watch. The weight of it settled over me. This was real. This was happening. In 2 weeks, I'd be face to face with the people who'd taken Emma. I'm ready, I said. Lorenzo studied me for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. I believe you are. Vienna was beautiful. Old-world elegance mixed with modern sophistication. We stayed in a hotel that cost more per night than I used to make in a month. Our suite overlooked the city center. Lorenzo had arranged for us to have connecting rooms. Stay close to me at all times, he instructed the first evening. Never go anywhere alone. Never let anyone separate us. If something feels wrong, signal me immediately. How do I signal you? Touch your right earring. I'll extract us within 60 seconds. He'd thought of everything. The auction viewing was the next day. A private gallery in the city center, by invitation only. I dressed in one of the elegant outfits Maria had selected. Black dress. Simple, but expensive. Hair styled perfectly. Makeup understated. I looked like someone who belonged in Lorenzo's world. When I emerged from my room, Lorenzo was waiting. He assessed me with one glance. Perfect. Remember everything I taught you. Observe. Listen. Never ask direct questions. Report everything later. Good. Let's go. The gallery was stunning. High ceilings, marble floors, art that made my breath catch, and wine. Cases and cases of rare vintages displayed like crown jewels. 20 people mingled in the main room, all wealthy, all dangerous. Lorenzo Vittori, a man approached, early 40s, handsome in a cold way, expensive suit. Dmitry, thank you for the invitation. They shook hands. The gesture looked friendly. I could feel the tension underneath. And this must be your consultant. Dmitry turned to me. Smiled. Signorina Moreau, your reputation precedes you. Signor Volkov, thank you for having me. Please, call me Dmitry. Anyone who can authenticate a 1947 Cheval Blanc is a friend. He gestured to the wine displays. I'm eager to hear your assessment of our collection. For the next 3 hours, I did what I'd trained for. I examined bottles, verified labels, discussed provenance, estimated values. Every word was calculated. Every assessment designed to demonstrate expertise while gathering information. Lorenzo stayed close, watching, listening, playing the role of interested client. But I could feel him analyzing everything. Every person, every interaction. Dmitry watched me work with obvious interest. You're very good at this, he commented, as I examined a case of Burgundy. I love wine. Understanding it, appreciating it, helping others do the same. Most consultants are more mercenary. You seem genuinely passionate. Passion is what separates adequate work from excellence. I agree completely. He moved closer. Too close. Perhaps you'd consider consulting for us permanently. We could use someone with your expertise. Warning bells rang in my head. I appreciate the offer, but I'm quite happy with my current arrangement. Lorenzo keeps you busy? Very. His collection is extraordinary. Yes. He has exceptional taste in many things. Dimitri's eyes moved over me in a way that made my skin crawl. Perhaps we could discuss your future over dinner. Just the two of us. Before I could respond, Lorenzo appeared at my side. I'm afraid Signorina Moreau's schedule is completely booked, but I appreciate your interest in her work. His hand settled on my lower back. Possessive. Protective. Shall we continue the viewing? Dimitri's smile didn't reach his eyes. Of course. We moved away. Lorenzo's hand stayed on my back. He was testing you, he murmured. Trying to separate us. Get you alone. I know. I handled it. You did, but he'll try again. Be ready. The rest of the evening was exhausting. Constant vigilance. Every conversation. A chess match. By the time we returned to the hotel, I was drained. You did well, Lorenzo said, as we entered our suite. Very well. Dimitri was impressed. He was predatory. He's dangerous, but he's also predictable. Lorenzo poured 2 glasses of wine, handed me one. You demonstrated exactly what we needed. Expertise. Professionalism. Loyalty to me. Now he wants what I have. Meaning access to you. Which gives us leverage. I sipped the wine. Let the exhaustion catch up with me. This is harder than I thought it would be. Being constantly evaluated and threatened. Being someone else. Pretending all the time. Never relaxing. Lorenzo sat across from me. That's my life. Every day. Every interaction. Always performing. Always 3 steps ahead. Doesn't it exhaust you? Every single day. He swirled his wine. But it keeps me alive. And it keeps the people I protect safe. Is that what I am? Someone you protect? He looked at me for a long moment. You're many things, Isabel. But yes, you're under my protection. Which means I'll do whatever necessary to keep you safe. The way he said my name, my first name, not Signorina Moreau, made something in my chest tighten. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm using you for my own purposes. You're also helping me find Emma. Yes, I am. He set down his glass. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we meet with Dimitri's team to finalize authentication protocols. It will be a long day. I stood to leave. Lorenzo? He looked up. Do you think Emma's still alive? He could have lied. Could have given me false hope to keep me compliant. Instead, he said, I don't know. But I promise you this. If she's alive, we'll find her. And if she's not, we'll make sure the people responsible pay for what they did. It wasn't comfort exactly, but it was truth. And truth was all I had left to hold on to. The next 3 days were intense. More meetings. More assessments. More careful navigation of dangerous people. But we accomplished our goal. Dimitri invited us to a private auction in Bucharest in 2 months, where the real merchandise would be displayed, where Emma might be. We left Vienna having secured exactly what we came for. Access. On the flight home, Lorenzo was unusually quiet. What's wrong? I finally asked. Nothing's wrong. We succeeded. Then why do you look concerned? He looked at me. Really looked at me. Because now comes the dangerous part. Everything we did in Vienna was preparation. What happens in Bucharest will be. He trailed off. What? Violent. Likely. Are you prepared for that? I've been preparing for 5 years. No, you've been searching for 5 years. Violence is different. When it happens fast. People get hurt. People die. There's no time for second guessing or moral considerations. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to prepare you for reality. Because when we get Emma out, and we will get her out, it won't be clean. It won't be easy. And you'll see things that will haunt you. I don't care. As long as she's safe. I know. That's what worries me. He looked out the window at the clouds passing below. You're willing to sacrifice anything for her. Even yourself. That kind of love is beautiful. It's also dangerous. She's my sister. I know. And I promise you, we'll get her back. He turned back to me. But I need you to promise me something in return. What? When we're in that compound, when things go wrong, because they will go wrong, you follow my orders exactly. You don't hesitate. You don't argue. You trust me completely. Can you do that? The intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. Yes, I can do that. Good. He settled back in his seat. Because your life and your sister's life will depend on it. We flew the rest of the way in silence. Both of us knowing that everything we'd built was leading to one moment. One chance. One rescue. And if we failed, Emma would be lost forever. 2 months felt like years. Lorenzo's organization gathered intelligence on the Bucharest compound, guard schedules, security systems, escape routes, everything we needed. I continued training, but now it was different. Physical training, how to move quietly, how to handle a weapon, how to follow orders under pressure. I thought I was just supposed to authenticate wine, I said after a particularly brutal session in Lorenzo's private gym. You are, until you're not. He handed me a towel. In Bucharest, you'll fall into their collection during the day. At night, when we extract Emma, you'll need to move fast and stay calm. That requires different skills. The plan was insane. Attend the auction. Establish credibility. Then, on the final night, use intelligence Lorenzo's people had gathered to infiltrate the holding area where the girls were kept. Extract Emma. Disappear before anyone realized what happened. Simple. Impossible. Our only option. The night before we left for Bucharest, Lorenzo called me to his study one last time. Tomorrow, everything changes. Are you ready? I've been ready for 5 years. He pulled out a small box. Opened it. Inside was a necklace. Simple. Elegant. With a small pendant. This has a tracking device. If we're separated, I can find you. If you're in trouble, press it 3 times rapidly. My team will extract you within minutes. He fastened it around my neck. His fingers brushed my skin. We stood there for a moment, too close. Both of us aware of it. Lorenzo? Yes. Thank you. For everything. For believing me. For helping me. Don't thank me yet. We haven't gotten her back. But you tried, when no one else would. That means something. He studied my face. You've changed. From the terrified sommelier, who poisoned the wrong man. You changed me. Trained me. Made me stronger. No. I just gave you tools. The strength was always there. His hand came up, almost touching my face, then dropped. We should get some sleep. Early flight. Right. Early flight. Neither of us moved. Isabel. My name again. Not Signorina Moreau. Whatever happens in Bucharest, you need to know something. What? I keep my promises. Especially to women. Especially to you. Before I could respond, he stepped back. Good night. Good night. I left his study with my heart pounding for reasons I didn't want to examine. Bucharest was colder than Vienna. Grayer. More oppressive. The auction house was in an old mansion on the outskirts of the city. Beautiful from the outside. Prison-like on the inside. Dmitri greeted us personally. Lorenzo. Signorina Moreau. Welcome to Romania. For 3 days, I authenticated wine. Played my role. All while Lorenzo's people gathered final intelligence about the compound. On the 3rd night, everything came together. Lorenzo appeared at my door at midnight. It's time. I was already dressed. Black clothes. Comfortable shoes. Ready. Emma, she's there. 2nd floor. Room 17. My people confirmed it an hour ago. My hands shook. She's alive. She's alive. But Isabel, you need to prepare yourself. 5 years in that place. She may not be the person you remember. I don't care. She's my sister. I know. Let's go get her. We slipped out of the hotel. A car waited. Not Lorenzo's usual driver. Someone from his Romanian contacts. The drive took 20 minutes. We stopped 2 blocks from the compound. From here, we walk. Stay close. Move quietly. Do exactly what I say. 6 of Lorenzo's men joined us. All armed. All professional. This was really happening. We approached the compound from the rear. Lorenzo's intelligence had identified a weak point in their security. A door that wasn't properly monitored. His tech specialist disabled the alarm. We were inside. The building was dark, quiet, terrifying. Lorenzo led the way. His men formed a perimeter. I stayed between them. Protected. 2nd floor. Down a hallway lined with doors. Room 17. Lorenzo's man picked the lock in seconds. The door opened. And there she was. Emma. Thinner than I remembered. Older. Her hair longer. But her face. God. Her face was the same. She looked up as we entered. Terror in her eyes. Emma. I whispered. It's me. It's Belle. She stared. Not comprehending. We're getting you out of here. Right now. Tears started down her face. Belle? Yes. It's me. Come on. We have to go. Lorenzo was already checking the hallway. We have 2 minutes before the guard rotation. Move now. Emma tried to stand. Stumbled. I caught her. I've got you. I've got you. We moved fast. Back through the hallway. Down the stairs. Almost there. Then alarms started blaring. They know, one of Lorenzo's men said. Extraction point. Now. Lorenzo's voice was calm. Command voice. Formation Delta. Protect the principals. His men surrounded us. We ran. Doors burst open behind us. Shouting in Romanian. Gunfire. One of Lorenzo's men went down. Keep moving. We reached the exit. Into the cold night. Toward the extraction vehicle. More men appeared, blocking our path. Lorenzo stepped in front of me, and Emma, his weapon out. Get them to the car. I'll handle this. Lorenzo. Now, Isabel. His men pushed us forward, toward a different car, a backup plan. More gunfire behind us. We reached the car. Emma and I were shoved inside. Where's Lorenzo? I demanded. He's buying us time. We have to go. We can't leave him. He ordered us to get you out. That's what we're doing. The car accelerated. I looked back, saw Lorenzo still fighting, still protecting our escape. Then we turned a corner, and he disappeared from view. We drove for 3 hours, changed vehicles twice, finally stopped at a safe house outside the city. Emma was in shock, barely speaking. A doctor Lorenzo had arranged, examined her. I held her hand the entire time. You're safe now, I kept telling her. You're safe. But I wasn't thinking about Emma. I was thinking about Lorenzo. Still back there. Still fighting. 6 hours later, my phone rang. He's alive, Marco said. Injured but alive. He'll meet you at the rendezvous point tomorrow. I nearly collapsed with relief. Lorenzo appeared at the safe house the next morning, bruised, cut above his eye, moving carefully like his ribs hurt, but alive. Emma? He asked, immediately. She's okay. Traumatized. But okay. Good. He looked at me. Really looked at me. You followed orders. You got her out. Well done. You stayed behind. You could have died. I told you. I keep my promises. He stepped closer. I promised to help you find your sister. Mission accomplished. Tears I'd been holding back for hours finally fell. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He pulled me into his arms, careful of his injuries, but holding me tight. You're welcome. We stood there for a long moment. Then Emma's voice from the doorway. Belle? I pulled away, went to my sister. Lorenzo watched, something in his expression. I couldn't read. The flight home was surreal. Emma slept most of the way. Exhausted, safe. Lorenzo sat across from me, working on his laptop like everything was normal. What happens now? I asked. Now Emma gets medical care, therapy, whatever she needs. I've arranged for the best specialists. Money is no object. I can't possibly repay. I'm not asking you to. He looked up. Consider it part of our agreement. Our agreement was that I work for you until I found Emma. I found her. So I'm free to go? He was silent for a moment. Technically, yes. But the Volkovs know someone infiltrated their compound. They're investigating. Eventually, they'll figure out it was me. When they do, they'll come for revenge. Anyone associated with me will be a target. So I'm still in danger. You're still in danger. Emma's in danger. The only way to keep you both safe is to stay under my protection. For how long? Until I neutralize the threat, which could be months. Or you leave now. Take Emma. Disappear. Change your names. Never contact anyone from your old life again. Live in hiding forever. Not really a choice at all. We'll stay. Good. He returned to his laptop. 'Cause truthfully, Isabel, I'd prefer you stayed regardless. My heart skipped. Why? He looked up, met my eyes directly. Because you're the best sommelier I've ever worked with. And because, he paused, because I've grown accustomed to having you around. Coming from Lorenzo Vittori, that was practically a declaration of love. I've grown accustomed to being around, I said softly. Good. Then it's settled. What's settled? You work for me. Indefinitely. Emma stays at the estate until she's ready to rejoin the world. And we continue as we were. As we were. As employer and employee. Is that all we are? He was quiet for a long moment. That's all we can be. I'm a criminal. Isabel. I hurt people. I break laws. I do terrible things to maintain my position. You're a good person who's been through hell to save her sister. We exist in different worlds. You saved Emma. That makes you a good person too. I saved Emma because I wanted to. Because helping you mattered to me. That doesn't erase everything else I've done. Maybe I don't care about everything else you've done. You should care. You should walk away. Take Emma and build a normal life far away from me. Is that what you want? Another long silence. No, it's not what I want. Then stop trying to push me away. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection from you. I trailed off, not sure how to finish. What do you need? You, I thought, but couldn't say. Instead, time to figure out what happens next. For Emma, for me, for everything. Time I can give you. He closed his laptop. Take all the time you need. The estate is your home for as long as you want it to be. Thank you. We sat in silence as the plane carried us home, to Lorenzo's estate, to safety, to whatever came next. 6 months later, Emma was healing, slowly, painfully, but healing. She'd started therapy, started talking about what happened, started reclaiming her life piece by piece. I was there for every step, but I was also still working for Lorenzo, still managing his wine collection, still attending events as his sommelier, still navigating his dangerous world. The Volkov situation had resolved. Lorenzo had used information from the Bucharest raid to broker a truce. Mutually assured destruction if either side made a move. Precarious, but stable. Which meant, technically, I could leave. Emma was safe. The threat was neutralized. I was free, but I didn't want to leave. Lorenzo and I had fallen into a rhythm. Professional during the day, personal at night. We'd have dinner, talk, sometimes for hours. He told me about his family, the pressure of being the heir, the weight of running an organization where one mistake meant death. I told him about growing up with Emma, about our parents who died when we were young, about choosing wine because it was the one thing that made sense in a chaotic world. We were careful, never crossing the line between employer and employee, but the line was getting thinner. One evening, after a particularly good bottle of Bordeaux, Lorenzo looked at me across the dinner table. I need to tell you something. That sounds ominous. It's not. It's just complicated. He set down his glass. When you first tried to poison Morrison, when you saved my life instead, I was furious. You disrupted everything, created chaos, forced me to deal with a situation I didn't want. I remember. You were very clear about that. But somewhere between that night and now, things changed. You changed. Or maybe I changed. I'm not entirely sure. My heart started beating faster. What are you saying? I'm saying that the best thing that's happened to me in years was you grabbing that poisoned glass out of my hand. The air between us felt electric. Lorenzo, let me finish. Please. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the gardens. I've spent my entire life maintaining control, following rules. My rules. Everything precise. Everything perfect. Everything exactly as it should be. I know. And then you appeared. Breaking every rule. Poisoning my dinner guests. Forcing me to improvise. Dragging chaos into my carefully ordered life. He turned to face me. I should have hated it. Hated you. But you didn't. But I didn't. He moved closer. You made me break my own rules, Isabel. I let you into my home, into my organization, into my... He paused. Into my life in a way I've never let anyone. I stood, closing the distance between us. Why? Because you're extraordinary. Because you saved your sister against impossible odds. Because you learned everything I taught you, and became someone formidable. Because when I look at you, I see someone who matches me, challenges me, makes me want to be better than I am. You are better than you think. I'm a criminal. You're a man who keeps his promises, who saved my sister, who protected me when you didn't have to, who gave me the tools to be strong. Isabel, I'm not afraid of your world anymore, Lorenzo. I'm not afraid of who you are. I've seen what you do, I've seen the darkness, and I'm still here. You shouldn't be, but I am. I reached up, touched his face. He flinched slightly, not from pain, but from surprise. I'm here because I choose to be, because somewhere in the last 6 months, this became my home. You became. What? Everything. The word hung between us. Then Lorenzo closed the final distance. His hand came up, cupped my face with surprising gentleness. If I kiss you, he said quietly, everything changes. We can't go back to employer and employee. We can't pretend there's a professional boundary. It complicates everything. I know. The danger increases. My enemies will see you as leverage. You'll be targeted, threatened, used against me. I know. You could still leave. Take Emma. Build a safe, normal life somewhere far from all this. I don't want safe and normal. I want this. I want you. Even knowing what I am, especially knowing what you are. Looking for doubt, for hesitation. He found none. Then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was urgent, desperate. Like something he'd been holding back for months, finally breaking free. I kissed him back with equal intensity. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo rested his forehead against mine. This is a terrible idea, probably the worst. You're going to drive me absolutely insane. Good. You need a little chaos in your life. He laughed. Actually laughed. A sound I'd rarely heard. God help me, Isabel. Moreau. What have you done to me? The same thing you did to me. Changed everything. He kissed me again. Slower this time. More deliberate. Stay, he whispered against my lips. Not as my employee. As what? I don't have words for what I want you to be. Partner seems inadequate. Girlfriend sounds juvenile. Nothing fits what this is. Then we don't use words. We just are. Just are, he smiled. I like that. 3 months later, everything had settled into a new normal. Emma was living in her own apartment now. Still healing. Still in therapy. But laughing again. Painting again. Slowly reclaiming the person she'd been before. She'd met Lorenzo several times. Been wary at first. Then grateful. Now they had a cautious friendship built on mutual respect. He's good for you, she told me one afternoon over coffee. I've never seen you this settled. Settled? Me? Happy. Confident. Like you finally found where you belong. I think I have. In a mafia boss's mansion. In a complicated man's life. The mansion is just a bonus. She laughed. Then grew serious. Well, thank you. For never giving up. For finding me. For saving me. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I know. That's what makes you terrifying. She squeezed my hand. I love you. I love you too. That evening, Lorenzo and I were in his wine cellar. He'd just acquired a case of extremely rare Burgundy and wanted my assessment. Pristine condition, I said, examining one of the bottles. Properly stored, authentic. Worth every euro you paid. Good. I'm planning to open one for dinner next week. We're having guests. Anyone I know? A business associate from Milan. He's bringing his wife. I thought it would be nice to have an actual social dinner for once. Not a negotiation disguised as hospitality. Lorenzo Vittori hosting a social dinner? Who are you and what have you done with my perfectionist crime lord? He pulled me close. He met someone who taught him that not everything needs to be a transaction. That sometimes pleasure can exist for its own sake. Sounds like a wise woman. She's tolerable. I smacked his chest lightly. Tolerable. Acceptable. Better. Extraordinary. Infuriating. The best thing that ever happened to me. Much better. He kissed the top of my head. I never thanked you properly. For what? For saving my life that night. If you hadn't grabbed that glass, then I never would have met you. Never would have found Emma. Never would have learned I was strong enough to survive your world. You're more than strong enough. You thrive in it. Because you taught me how. No. Because you already had it in you. I just helped you see it. We stood there in that beautiful cellar, surrounded by bottles worth fortunes. And I realized something. I'd spent 5 years searching for Emma. Desperate. Afraid. Running from my own pain. And in trying to save her, I'd found something else. Purpose. Strength. Home. And a man who'd shown me that darkness and light could coexist. that love could grow in unexpected places, that sometimes the wrong choice leads to exactly where you're supposed to be. What are you thinking? Lorenzo asked. That I'm glad I poisoned the wrong man. He laughed. That's one way to put it. What would you call it? The best mistake either of us ever made. I looked up at him. This complicated, dangerous, perfect man who'd changed my entire life. I love you, I said. Simple, true. His expression softened in a way it only did for me. I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. Even though I disrupted your perfect life, especially because you disrupted my perfect life. Perfection was lonely. This is messy and complicated and occasionally terrifying. But it's real. And it's ours. I kissed him. Poured everything I felt into it. When we broke apart, he was smiling. That rare, genuine smile that made him look years younger. Come on, he said, taking my hand. Maria's making your favorite for dinner, and I have something I want to discuss with you. Sounds ominous. It's not. It's about the future. Our future. My heart skipped. What about it? I'll tell you over dinner. But Isabel, whatever happens next, whatever challenges we face them together. Agreed? Agreed. We walked upstairs hand in hand, leaving the wine cellar behind, moving toward whatever came next. I'd started this journey trying to poison a man who'd destroyed my life. I'd ended it falling in love with the man I'd accidentally saved instead. The old paranoia would say that was too good to be true. That happiness like this couldn't last. That danger was always waiting around the corner. But I'd learned something in the past year. Sometimes you have to trust, have to take the leap, have to believe that, despite all the risks, despite all the danger, despite everything that could go wrong, sometimes the right person makes it all worth it. And Lorenzo Vittori, Mafia boss, perfectionist, complicated man who kept his promises, he was worth everything.